I have my other Trans Am here, which I ain't seen yet. It's a 2002 WS6. It is bone stock, and it has 72,000 miles on it. And the intention was to keep it stock, but I can't do it. So I ordered the Tick Performance, what is it, Street Heat Stage 2 cam, and long tube headers, off-road Y pipe, and it's just a stock muffler for now, and I'll have the quad tips out back, but should liven her up a little bit and get a sound clip now, and then see what she sounds like afterwards. Gotta lay down to get in this thing. 6-speed car, so I don't have to worry about stalling or nothing like that. Alright, so took off the few pieces here, the connectors off, I'm letting this radiator drain. Got this bucket all cleaned out, and it's really good looking antifreeze, so we'll probably just reuse it. And sorry if I'm breathing real hard, my nose is stuffed up something terrible, and I just can't really breathe out my nose, so I'm mouth breathing right now, but I gotta figure out how I'm gonna get this AC condenser out the way, because I'm not gonna discharge it. It works pretty good right now, but I don't think I'm gonna have the room for my cam to come all the way out. So maybe I can flip it over to the side somehow. We'll have to see what happens when we get to that. Yeah, just a quick little update. Alright, little update. I've made a mess, but it's not like terrible, I guess. Anyways, radiator is out, the electric fans are out, the water pump is off, and fuel line is coming out the way so I can take these valve covers off. And this fuel line is just a quick disconnect. You put this little tool on here and push on it, and it'll push these little tabs out the way and pop off of there. Somebody's been in this motor before. These are not the right valve covers or heads for this car, and this is not the right intake for this car. Just, I mean, it kind of sucks, but it's not a big deal because it's not a race car, you know, it's still a LS1 motor, and I'm just wanting something that sounds good and it's got a little pep. But yeah, valve covers, gotta unbolt these, and that's what kind of made it a dead giveaway, because these are perimeter bolt and they're 806 heads. They're supposed to be 241 heads with center bolt valve covers, and this is an LS1 intake. It should be an LS6 intake for an 02 car, and you can usually tell by the EGR hole right here. An LS6 intake will not have an EGR spot. Some LS1 intakes will have an EGR spot, or will not have an EGR spot. but most LS1 intakes have this, and somebody put a block off plate on it. But I got this bolt out. My buddy has the puller for that, so I'm gonna have to get the puller, pull that pulley off, and I'm just about ready to take the cam out. I don't have the new cam yet. I'll get it soon. I mean, I've already ordered it, but it hasn't showed. And then I gotta change the springs, and F-body pains, man, it's like way up in there, so that kind of sucks. But all in all, should go good. I'm gonna change the cam first, and once the cam's all done, then I'll do the headers. I don't want to take apart too much at one time. But yeah, going good. So we got the pulley off, and I just realized I've been filming everything straight up and down. I didn't think about that. I make the video, it's gonna be small for the first part. But here is the pulley. You have these 3 little tabs. So you get a gear pulley, and this will sit in there and it'll attach to these tabs. Like so, on all 3. And you'll have your little push rod that'll sit where the crank bolt did, and this will push on that, and it'll pull it off. Going back on, you just have this, or just basically a piece of all thread. Screw that in there, tighten this up, push it back on. There's no keyways on these motors, these are slip fit, so you don't have to worry about that. So the timing chain cover is off, and on a small block Chevy that would be pretty excessive in my opinion, but from the little bit of experience that I have with LS motors, that is actually pretty good. And the timing chain cover, you got 2 bolts from the bottom of the oil pan right there and right there, and then you just take off the rest of these bolts, and this cover just pops right off. My seal right there is kind of dirty, probably need to change this. Yep, pops right off. So now I just got to take off my rocker arms and push rods, and then the cam gear, and then I can go ahead and swap out this cam. Cool thing about LS motors is that as long as you have the correct length push rod, the valves is set. You just got to torque these things down, and there's no 0 lash and 1/4 of a turn and 1/2 a turn, whatever you want to do, but these are just torqued down, that's it. You don't have to adjust rockers. So that's cool. But yeah, hopefully we can get this condenser out the way enough to pull that cam out. Going pretty good. All the rocker arms are off. I gotta change springs all the way back there. Both sides. I took the EGR off just to be out of the way. Fuel lines, and just move it out the way when I'm ready. See, these are the rocker arms. They sit on these little tray. And cam gear. When you put these cam bolts back in, they don't have any kind of retainers like a small block Chevy does, so I definitely Loctite these. A lot of the good Loctite. And I lined up the marks before I took the cam off. Let's see if I can move this chain out of the way. If we can even see down right there. Pick up this light. And you can kind of see. Yeah, you see the dot right there? On that tooth, that's sitting up. That's gonna go straight up 12 o'clock. And the cam gears will be straight down 6 o'clock, and they're gonna line up. So the only thing I got left to do is take this retainer plate off, and then I'm going to take this cam, spin it really fast. We'll start off really fast, and hopefully all these lifters will lift up into their trays. Pop this out, pop the new one in, and it'll be done. We'll see how that goes. Underneath this plate, there's 2 holes you can put dowels in. That'll help as well. All right, it's still at the same spot. It's been a few days. We got some long tube headers. These are 1 3/4 primaries. They're a little bit smaller just because this isn't a high performance car. So hopefully they fit a little better. Easier to install. And then we got valve springs. These are TIC Performance 660 lift dual valve springs. We have valve seals. Both times I've done this, you get a blue valve seal and you get a brown valve seal. I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm gonna have to ask TIC, but one of them is for exhaust and then one of them is for the intake. And then we got the O2 extensions. Hopefully these are long enough. I think these are 18-inch. And we got hardened push rods. These are stock length because we're using the stock lifters. 7.4 inches. We got a spring compressor tool still in the bag. We got the gasket for the front timing cover. And we also got the bolt somewhere in here. Yeah, it's in there somewhere. The crank bolt. That is a torque to yield bolt and it must be replaced. And then for anybody who cares, here is the cam card. It is a Street Heat Stage 2. Should be a good street cam. Shouldn't have any cam surge or anything like that. Yep. So my dad's video came out when I did the cam in the Silverado. So got Loctite and dowel pins to help hold the lifters. And my dad's video came out and they changed the cam with no issues. The lifters stayed where they were supposed to. So hopefully the next clip, I'll have this AC condenser out the way. The cam changed. And hopefully no lifters fall. Alright, so got this AC condenser out the way. Just kind of folded it up. And that is the new cam, dude. Not gonna lie, this is the part that's been scaring me about this whole thing. Because if a lifter fell, it'd become a freaking headache. But I spun that old cam. Spun really well. And I stuck these 5/16 dowel pins. I got these from Home Depot. It is $2.50 per 48 inches. So I cut it in half and that is what I used. And it seemed to work good because I swapped cams with absolutely no issue. I pushed the lifter in every single hole, or I put a push rod in every single hole to feel for the lifters, and they were all there, and they were all pretty far away from the cam, so they definitely moved out of the way, and this definitely held them. And this is a 5/16. I also had because that hole, man, that hole is massive, right? Compared to that dowel pin. So I was like, okay, well, 5/16. So I got a 3/8 also. And I also got a 7/16 over there. But 3/8 did not fit. 5/16 is the move. That fits perfectly. I pushed it, we took the cam out, put the cam back in. Absolutely no issues. So everything from here on out is gonna be smooth sailing. and I'm pretty excited about that. The springs, this side's not too bad. Get back there. This side might kind of suck. But other than that, hell yeah. Also, with this timing gear, you can tell it's not that bad because all these tips here still are rounded. If this thing had a bunch of miles on it, these would be sharp points. So this looks pretty good. And retaining plate is on. Cam sprocket is on. And let's see if you could see this. It's really hard to get a light in here. The dots are lined up. And I put a bunch of red Loctite on these bolts. You don't want those coming off. The retainer plate gets torqued to 18 foot-pounds, and these bolts get torqued to 28 foot-pounds, according to Google. Alright, so I got my valve spring compressor tool installed, and this is by far the best valve spring compressor I've ever seen or used ever. And I'm gonna do this by the top dead center method on every cylinder, and I'll drop some pictures here in a second of how that's done and how you can compare the dots to what cylinders on top dead center. And I know I said blue earlier, but it's actually black. So you have black top valve seals or intake, and you have brown top valve seals, which are exhaust. And from what I'm understanding, these are the same diameter, but this is a different material, so it can withstand the heat better. That's what I'm getting from that. But then Tick is telling me I can take these springs off, change that stuff out, and put the springs back on. No shimming or anything required. So go ahead and get into that. So old valve springs are out. There's the bottom piece. And I don't know. I think that shim was already in there. No shims came off of this. So there's the bottom piece, the spring, and the retainer and the keepers. And it comes with hardened bottom piece and new retainers and new keepers as well. So I changed that bottom piece and I put the valve seals on. Black on intake, brown on exhaust. And unlike a small block Chevy, these seals do not go all the way down. You tap them until they don't go any further. There's a gap down there. I can't make it see that, but well, maybe. Yeah, there's a gap down there. And this is number 1 is at top dead center. And this is the valve all the way down. the valve will not go any further than that. So doing the top dead center method, this is as far down as that valve will go. But I'm going to go ahead and install these springs and just show that, and then after that I'll just change them all and pick up from there. These 2 valve springs are on. 14 more to go. And I'm not gonna lie, man, I got these down and the spring kept going one way or the other, and getting those retainers in is not easy. So I can't even imagine doing back there, but yeah. Another thing I forgot to mention, these valve seals, I knock them on. It seems like an 11mm deep well socket fits on these perfectly, and I use that to knock these down, you know, and hit them until the sound changes, and they're all the way on, and they won't go all the way down. But these 2 are done. Number 1 and number 6 can be done with the marks lining up. So I'll put some pictures of how I'm gonna do this, and then I'll go ahead and get back to y'all when all the springs are done. So I'm still at top dead center, mark to mark. Already did number 1, and I just figured I'd show this real quick. You can see that gap in between the valve seal and that plate. That's the gap you're gonna have, as far down as they go. All the springs are installed. And all the push rods are sitting in there. And I found out with this tool, it's like this. Spacer goes on top so bolts don't bottom out. And then when you put this on, I thought the grooves went down over the springs, but it turns out it works a lot better if you have these grooves up. So, yep. Just gotta put it all together, we'll be good to go. You say hi? You tired? Yep. Getting there. Progress update. I changed that seal right there. Simple as knocking it out and knocking a new one in. Kind of cleaned up this cover in the gasket area. I still need to clean the water pump area, but I figured I'd close the front before I clean that so everything don't fall into the oil pan. And I went ahead and got my rocker arms all on both sides, and they all move like they should. It's got a pretty big lift, and it's a little cam, but it looks like a lot. And torque these down to 22 foot-pounds. Just go ahead and torque them all of them. And sometimes this won't sit center on the valve spring, but you torque them all down, spin the motor over, torque them all down, spin the motor over, torque them all down. Just do that like 4 times, and eventually, I mean, they'll just center themselves out, and then the torque will never change, and that's all you gotta do. It's set. So now I'm gonna throw on these valve covers, hook everything up top, back up, put on the pulley, put on the radiator and the fans, then do the water pump, and we'll be home free. Be able to start it, my dad will tune it, and then the next video that I do of this car might be tuning. The video after that will be doing the exhaust. And that's probably all I'm gonna do this car. I got a lot of stuff coming for the 80, but that's all on Pops. But yeah, coming right along. Valve covers are on. I went ahead and hooked the air system back up until we do the headers. Fuel lines on, tight. Whatever this is, on, tight. The 3 lines for that later. This valve cover is on. And the balancer's on. I use this tool, threads right into the crank. Tighten this bolt up, use a pry bar to hold it. Just make sure it's not on something that's gonna break, like maybe an oil pan. I had it sitting on the block, but I tightened this up, pulled the crank in, put my new crank bolt in, and luckily my torque wrench goes high enough. It was a 240 foot-pound torque. It wasn't too bad with this guy. So I'm gonna put on the water pump. I'm gonna put on both belts because you got a belt for the AC and you got a belt for the alternator and power steering. And then I'm gonna put the radiator in, and then air filter, math, stuff like that. And it'll be ready to pull the tune and then start messing with it. This needs replaced. Kind of sounds crappy. Everything else sounds pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and put it together, and I'll just change that soon. That'll be easy to change. The belts also, I need to change both my belts. But I'm gonna go ahead and throw on the radiator, throw on this top guy, the water pump, and the battery, and this will be ready to go. Just a little bit left. Radiator's all in, all the lines are on, water pump's on, belts are on, power steering cooler lines are on. Everything's plugged up. Looks just like it did when we took it apart. I filled this up with coolant. So I'm gonna put this on in the next video. I'm gonna start her up with no tune, to see what happens. All done, besides bleeding some coolant. It's all hooked up. Missing the little tabs that go in here. And it doesn't really make a difference, but I'm gonna get them. Coolant's in there, and this is gonna be the first start. I feel really bad because my neighbors really share a wall. They're really good people, but I'm not gonna run it for long. And let me scoot this up, get it way back. Run it twice. That sounded kind of bad. The lifters need to pump up. It's running, but it's running like crap. These lifters sound bad. So they pump up. Put some coolant in here. Getting the coolant bled. Lifters are sounding a little better. Now something small leak right there. Gotta find out. But you can't barely hear this thing without exhaust on it.